Buying or selling a home is one of the most important decisions you'll make in your entire life. Call the Holly Ritchie team today for a free market analysis.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Spanning the Need. Tonight, we're going to talk to the 2020 Hope honoree, Delphine Casey. Delphine, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me.
I appreciate it. And what people may not know, and we're talking to you because you were presented with the 2020 Hope honoree for Lifetime Achievement by the Hope Foundation in 2020, which unfortunately we couldn't honor you because of the pandemic, but we hope to honor you in 2022.
Okay.
And so we appreciate you taking time, and we'll talk a little bit about the award and kind of what that meant for you. But let's talk a little bit about your background. I mean, you've done a diverse stuff. You were a police officer. You've wore a lot of hats, as we like to say. So tell me kind of like, or at least our viewers, kind of your background and kind of your career up until where you are now and what you've done.
Okay. I always wanted to be a nurse. And what I did was I started nursing school for a little bit. And I was going to YU when an officer was recruiting for the Youngstown Police Department, a sergeant. He pulled up the cruiser and he said, "How would you like to be a police officer?" And I looked at him and asked him, was he crazy?
They don't do that now.
No. And he said, well, we really need police officers, especially women and minorities. And I had no interest in being a police officer. You know, my goal was to be a nurse, but I let him talk me into at least taking the test. He said, would you just go down and take the test? So if I tell someone something, okay, my word is my word. So when I went down to get an application, that should have turned me around because I was like number 61 in line. And my understanding was they weren't going to hire that many police. And I started to turn around, but I stayed and I got the application. I filled it out. I sent it back in. They gave you time to take a test. I went, I took the test, and that was going to be the end of it for me. I fulfilled my promise. So what happened, unbeknown to me, at the time, affirmative action plan was in. The city had 3 lists. They had a list for everybody that took the test, which it was like 500 people on the list. They had a list for minorities, and they also had a list for women. And when the test scores came out, I was number 1 on the minority list. I was number 1 on the list for women. And if you combine the list as a whole, I would have been like number 8. And
so you actually did well on the test.
Yeah, I did, considering what they told you to study for. And it was just very strange back in the day because Professor Albright, for people that remember him, he was on the committee. They had to put books and material for you to study. Now, I'm from Campbell, Ohio, which I call God's country because Campbell is so diverse. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school with people from a lot of different backgrounds. And so when they told me that I had to get this book to study that had African history, the first thing I said, well, why do I have to study this? I don't live in Africa and I wouldn't know any more about that country, okay, than anybody else. But they thought that being a minority, that would give you an advantage. And of course, going to Camel back in the 60s we didn't have any type of African history. So,
Well, it's back and back then, if I'm not mistaken, even when you're talking about the 60s and 70s,
mhm,
you're looking at YPD's force probably in the hundreds. I mean, you're talking because of the population of the city, and you're 100,000, 200,000 people. So you need a police force of so many.
right. And at the time, I think it was, I want to say 300 and some officers on the force when I joined. But
Wow.
But the history about the year that I joined, every year we celebrate, because never in the history of the Youngstown Police Department did they hire 50 something officers at one time. In the year 1978, they hired 50 or 52 of us.
Hmm. Wow. Compared to maybe hiring 5 or 6 every go around here.
Right. And that was the first year that women were actually going to be on patrol, where we were actually going to be in police cars. So, probably the other funny thing about that for me, Anthony, okay, um, I decided that I would take the job and I would only stay there a year. And then I would go back and try to be a nurse. And I would, after I put the uniform on, I guess I was proud, and I got hired like December 4th of 1978. So I went out and I bought this beautiful badge that said policewoman so I could have an extra badge. Now, look, I haven't even been on the job a year, haven't made my probation, and I got called into internal affairs already. And the reason I got called into internal affairs, my badge fell off in a cruiser. Someone turned it in, and I got called in, and I was told I was not a police woman. I took the same test that the men took. I took the same physical, and my was patrol officer or police officer.
And you're like, my badge is right here. Well, and it's funny you talk about that because you've been in the force. Well, you just retired a little back ago, unless you're still in it now as a.
Well, what happened, Anthony, from why Youngstown Police Department, I've actually been retired 11 years, but after I left Youngstown Police Department, I went to the Sheriff Department for a while. When I left the Sheriff Department, I went to Camel, where I'm from, and I made, um, I guess, a little bit of history there.
We
Um,
lost your light. What happened to your light?
oh, my light. Oh.
We lost your light.
Oh, okay. Give me a moment. Oh, this would happen to me.
There we go.
Okay, okay. You can see some of me.
Right there. Perfect. Perfect.
All right. So, I went to Camel Police Department, and I made, I guess I made some history there too. Um, and they did do a news article. I guess Hometown Girl. I went back to Camel. I never thought I would do that. And I ran a youth police academy for them. Um, oh,
We just love that light. There you go.
okay. How about if I cut? Okay, can you still see me?
We'll just follow you through the house. There you go.
Okay. That was by my computer, so I guess that light kept going out.
What
Right.
one thing I think one thing that people may not realize is you were in the police force for over 30 years
I
total.
Yes, I was on the Youngstown Police Department for 31 years. I think I did like 3 years with the Mahoney County Sheriff Department. And just this year, I retired or left Camel Police Department.
We talk about how you won the award for the Hope Honoree, which is an award presented by the Hope Foundation, for what work you do in the community, as well as for families and children. What does that and what people should understand is you have given back to the less fortunate. You've given back to families and individuals in the society that people may not know. And I think that's what really helped. And we'll talk about a little bit about what kind of getting into that level about what you did with the youth and everything. But what did it feel like to be notified that you won the Hope Award?
Well, first of all, Anthony, I was very surprised. I had no idea that someone nominated me. Very close friends did not tell me that they work with me, that have known me for years. And, you know, it's an honor when people see you and they think of you in the way that they do. Sometimes I'm a little shy about it. And the reason for that is, a lot of times I say to people, I've worked a long time and working for the police department. I mean, I go to work, I get a paycheck. And so I don't see anything special that I do. And then people will say, but Delphine, you just don't know, you go beyond and above what you have to do. And I don't, I guess when I'm helping people, I love it. And I guess I really don't look at it that way.
Well, and it's funny because we talk about people that we knew. You worked the Diocese of Youngstown under Bishop Murray, who I knew very well, and I think he came and mentioned something to you, and you were kind of a little shocked, like, "What are you talking about?"
And that's true. I didn't know what he was talking about, but it seems like when this award came up, I guess a lot of people knew that I didn't know, or they were torn to see.
Well, it's funny because I think I was talking to the bishop at the time, and I just mentioned to him after we announced it, and I go, "Does she know?" And I said, "I don't know because we made the announcement." And then I think he walked to your office or something and just mentioned something like that. And you're like, "What are you talking about?"
That's true. I still didn't know. I still didn't know what he was talking about. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where people have nominated me for award, and like I said, Anthony, I just look at it as doing my job. You know.
And talk a little bit about what you've done kind of in the community over the years. I think I want to give kind of people the idea of what you've done in the community and kind of, I mean, you won this award because you do help other people. Like you said, you just did it. There was no thinking twice of something. You helped our youth. So talk a little bit about what you've done in the past, and kind of give us kind of leeway I'm sorry, just kind of guide us on where that helped you.
I tell you what, when I look back, first of all, in the Youngstown Police Department, I had a vision. All right. And one of the things was that I worked on the street or front line, and I was tired of watching women get abused, not only by their husbands, but by the judicial system as well, meaning from the police, prosecutors, and the courts. Okay. The domestic violence law didn't come out until 1978, the year that I joined the police department. And of course, joining the police department, being one of the first women on patrol, it was so much sexism and racism, and I even throw in the word favoritism that I faced. And I knew things were not going to be easy. For what I wanted to do for women who were battered, women who were rape victims, because it seemed to me at the time that every time a female came into the police department and they had to file a complaint, they were always being looked at. Okay, what did you do? All right. And of course, when it came to violent crimes against women, that was like a big thing for me. Your study asked, and what did she do? But you're not questioning why the abuse was being committed. So, in a lot of ways, I went to school to a lot of training, and I wanted to do violent crimes against women. And I knew that wasn't going to be easy. And so I dreamed of having a special unit, which the police department didn't have at that time. I was in the detective division with all the other detectives. And Mayor Ungaro, bless his heart, I went to him, which meant I went over the police chief head. Probably could have been fired. But I spoke to him about this division, this unit that should have been in the Youngstown Police Department. And Mayor Ungaro was the one that got me a grant writing team from YSU, introduced me to some people, said, give them your ideas. And the grant was written, the unit was open, and 8 months after the unit was open, we got the Attorney General Award. At the time, that was Betty Montgomery. We got a state award after being open only 8 months. And that unit is still there, but it's under the Family Service Investigation Division. And I'll always be proud of that because that unit expanded. And then when another police chief came along, since there were a lot of crimes against women who had children, I went to the police chief. I talked about the juvenile division.
You didn't like going to the mayor on this time?
Well, I guess since I was old enough to go to the mayor over to the police chief before, I guess. There's a joke about me in the police department, okay?
Oh boy.
And whenever I would want to do something, now it's always something good. It's always for people.
I totally agree.
People would go in there and they would try to talk to my captain to tell my captain what I was doing now. And my captain would say, don't get her started. Leave her alone.
Don't give her any good other bright ideas.
Because, when I worked on something, I wanted it done. I hooked up with a lot of people in a lot of community organizations. And so whenever something was done, there was this round table, all right, where I wanted people from Children's Services Board, Help Hotline, all the social agencies that I connected with. And there were times that I was ridiculed in the police department because people would ask me, well, are you the police or are you a social worker? And I always found that to be funny because a lot of police work does involve social work,
Nowadays, in the last 20 years, it has done more with youth from what you've done. Like you were talking about youth and everything, how it created the youth and really created the accountability, the teaching, the child really kind of, because if you kind of don't touch our youth, then they're going to be turning out in different ways that we probably may not want that to be.
Anthony, I just totally agree with you on that because when I was in the Youngstown Police Department, there were two other programs I wanted to do. One was the Citizen Police Academy, and one was the Police Academy. And I remember fighting me hard about doing the youth police academy. They wanted to do the Citizens Police, and but what I was trying to tell them, you have to start with the youth and you have to educate the youth. Because, Anthony, when I was younger and a young person drew a picture of the police, they used to draw a picture of the police with the image that we set at the donut counter with a donut and a cup of coffee.
I can only imagine what that looks like.
Well, you're getting into the minds of young people and how they think. And one of the things that I wanted the youth to know, I really wanted them to learn that there's consequences for everything you do. There can be good consequences, there can be bad consequences. And um, so I love working with the kids because they're so impressionable. They learn things, they understand things. And those youth police academies were very successful. However, then there's times that you would get commanders in the police department that want to know, well, why are you working with the youth? You need to be working with the older citizens. And I enjoyed doing that too, because there was a lot of work to do as far as the elderly people in our community. So I had a passion for that too. And the other passion was people with mental illness, and I proudly served on that mental health board for like 8 years. And that was another role that I felt that as police officers, you know, these are things we have to look at when you're going to make an arrest from somebody. You should be able to assess, is there a mental illness here? Is there some type of problem? And I think that is when I worked as a frontline supervisor that I was glad that I had some authority and I would show up on those calls. And I would point certain things out to the officers. You're um, doing things to this person, but you're not looking at that there's an issue here. And so I did a lot of work like that. And when I look at things with the police going across the country, um, the first thing for me during my career was the Rodney King beating. And um, I made the front page of the newspaper. The president was on top and a couple other famous people. And then they had little old me from Youngstown. And at the time, I was president of an organization called the Black Knights Police Association. And
I'm very familiar in the city of Youngstown.
absolutely. And I think the honor for me with that organization, I was the first female president, and to this day still have been the only female president. And the only way you could get to be president, it was mostly men that had to vote for you. Okay. But I I like the challenge of doing something different, taking on issues that maybe I felt like other fellow officers didn't take on. And even though I'm in retirement now, one of my big issues that I think police officers all across the country have to come to grips with would be that code of silence, okay? Where I think that still exists. And I can talk about the code of silence because at one time, um, I witnessed something that um, I didn't like. All right. And at the same time, you could be put in danger um, for saying something and wanting to expose it, and someone would get fired or get in trouble. And I was put in a lot of situations like that too, you know?
Yeah, and I think what's the word I'm looking for? It's unfortunate
Yeah.
that it's unfortunate that everything that in general that police officers and just I should say just law enforcement are
Yeah.
going through right now with, hey, uh, each each department is very different. Um, each department has its strengths and weaknesses. And I think overall, especially in the Mahoning Valley, we have a very strong police force. and there's a lot. And from what we've seen over the last year, we actually have great relations with the police departments. The community does, from what you've seen in quiet marches, quiet parades, people sticking up for community in general, not doing different things that may affect police officers, from at least what I've seen on the news and what I've seen on Facebook. And I think showing that young youth to respect that entity, and not committing crimes, no matter what whoever you are, white, brown, black, whoever you are, you fall into that. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that. You should be respectful to everyone coming from police, from the community leaders. They're the ones helping this area evolve. And then you have some youth that you just teach them. That's all.
Well, one of the things I think that I was successful with, when I ran a youth police academy, I took the kids on a tour to JJC, and I also took them to the county jail. And you talk about a scared straight program. I had them write essays, and I wanted to know their thoughts and why they would never want to go to jail. And you either won first, second, or third place. And those kids' essays were amazing. All right. And now some of them I see as an adult, they like to tell me about Miss Casey, when you took us down to the county jail. And I mean, it this is what you want kids to see, where they don't want to be. Okay. And sometimes they watch things on TV and they have their ideas about, but it's nothing like going down there to the real place. And my very good friend, Sheriff Jerry Green.
Oh boy.
Oh yes, he's always accommodated me whenever I wanted to go to the bigger jail, because sometimes JJC didn't affect the kids as much. All right, but when they
put them in the big house.
Yes. And the other thing I liked, every now and then when I'm teaching kids in the police academy, I would get a kid that would come in there and say he wanted to be the bad kid in the class. Oh, there's nothing wrong with JJC. And then I would say, please stand up, whoever the kid was. And I said, okay, so tell us about your experience when you went to JJC. Look at me. And I said, okay, I'm going to help you out. Now, did you tell them that when you go into JJC that you don't wear your own clothes, that they strip you? Did you tell them that they check your hair? Did you tell them that you go to bed, you eat, and you sleep when they tell you to? And the worst thing the kids hated, no matter if they went to JJC or the big jail, to walk by and there's the bathroom with no doors. Okay. So a lot of things.
It's not a pretty sight.
Not a pretty sight. Okay. It's not a pretty sight.
And I don't know why people think it's a walk in the park.
Well, that's because when kids are in school and you look at bullies, all right, bullies like to walk around the school and brag about going to JJC. When I get a bully in my class, I like to point out the things to the kids that they don't tell you that happens when they go there, And
yeah.
Once again, I'm very big on teaching, there's consequences for things that you do.
For every action.
Yes. Yeah. And once again, if you do good things, there's good consequences. If you do bad things, then you're going to have bad consequences. So I think I was pretty successful in getting through.
You sure were. And we talked to a lot of people, and that's what you were successful with the youth. You really were with your youth academies. And I think that's what kind of really make you that great individual for lifetime achievement. You've just done it all. I mean, I served on Mahoning County Children's Services Board for a little bit, at one point where it feels like it's been eternity since I attended a meeting. And it's just great to see that what accomplishments you've done with the kids, no matter how big or small it was. And it's funny how you became a police officer because you actually wanted to be a nurse.
I wanted to be I wanted to be, as I call nurses, Anthony, I call them angels in white. And instead, I became an angel in blue.
Yeah, Blue Angel, as they call them.
Yes, yes. So helping people, looking at people that are misfortunate, um, that's always been a passion of mine. I was that way as a young kid growing up in Camel, and just always being thankful for what I got. And in fact, my family would tease me and said, because I was always giving away things, right? And they would say, "We don't understand you. Why do you give people something that even you don't have?" Okay. In a way of money, right? For example, maybe I don't have a toaster, but I'll go buy you one. Okay. I don't know. Just, I guess.
You love to give back to the less fortunate. You're one of those people that will do almost anything for anyone if you're able to do it in your capacity.
Right. And Anthony, I will share something else with you that I was at a women's meeting one time, and a lady raised her hand and she said, "Did you ever think about getting killed? Have you ever thought about that on your job?" Because
That's a tough question.
during my career, 7 officers, 6 have been killed in the line of duty where their picture is up on the wall. And another one was in a very bad car accident. And that was heartbreaking because we were both supervisors, and the supervisors dropped each other off. I was getting off duty, turned my car over to the next supervisor, got home, and the guy that's the police chief now, Carl Davis, gave me a call, and that quick he had been killed in an accident. And um, that was, that was very painful.
Geez, you just saw the guy, and not even much longer, he
Hadn't
passes away, unfortunately.
even taken off my uniform after I was dropped off, and I got the phone call. And I was able to, they wanted me to help out with that funeral because he was a very dear friend of mine. The last officer killed in the line of duty, Mike Hart. So that was another heartbreaking moment for
It was
me.
a heartbreaking for everyone. He wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting in his car.
Absolutely. And 2 weeks prior to that, I was in a altercation with someone. Mike was the backup officer that came. And then 2 weeks later, that situation happened. And so I've seen quite a few officers killed in the line of duty, and that I worked with, and I highly respect it, you know.
Yeah, I can only imagine what any officers, I mean, when you see these officers' funerals, you see it's not one department, it's dozens of departments in a geographical area that come and show their respect and everything like that. And I hope, I mean, look what happened at the Capitol.
Absolutely. Well,
And
oh, go ahead.
so yeah, so I don't, uh, just, it is what it is, unfortunate.
Well, when the lady asked me, she said, "Have you ever thought about getting killed in the line of duty, or have you ever had any situation?" So I told her, I said, "You know what worries me more?" And she said, "What?" I said, "There was a domestic violence case, and I was the officer that responded. Soon as I pulled up, this guy had this shotgun pointed right in my face. But thank goodness for police training. I knew how to react, and I used the cruiser door as part of the show. I hit the ground, okay, so that he had a shotgun that was fixed to go one way and it was off, okay, a sawed-off shotgun. And
Ugh.
at the time, I didn't think about me. You know what I actually thought about, Anthony? I thought about when you go into the projects, people are all around when the police show up. People just come outside when they see the lights inside. I didn't think about me. I thought about if that shotgun goes off, the kids, the women that were all standing around the Cetus would have been the victims of that shotgun because I was trained to protect myself. And that's what about how people when they see the police and dangerous situation, people come out, they want to see, but sometimes they don't realize that you could get hurt.
Hmm.
Just standing there watch, and I just thought of all those kids.
Yeah, and those are not easy situations.
Right.
Um, I mean, look what happened in Girard a couple of years ago on a domestic. I mean, those are just something you think would be, hey, relax, let's work this out. A little bit nowadays is a little bit more difficult.
Absolutely. And like I said, I didn't plan on joining the police department, nor when I joined the police I had no idea what type of work I would do. I mean, when you're a rookie, you go there, you get trained for everything. And violent crimes against women and children, like became my path, you know?
I, I have to ask this question, and I don't know. I don't think you mentioned it. Do you remember who the officer was that talked you into becoming a police officer?
Yes, I do.
Who was it?
Well, his name was Leonard Williams. And here's the thing that was hard for me. He pulled up. He was a sergeant. I was going to buy a shoe. Pulled up in that patrol car. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. Seen a woman, I guess he knew he was recruiting women, and he just walked up and asked me. However, in the end, um, at my retirement party, uh, he was there. A councilman that stood up for me all the time. A lot of people might not remember Pete Starks. Um,
Hmm.
and then Judge Haynes, right? And
That's going back.
yes, it is. But they were in my corner when they found out that I was had applied for the police department, and they saw my name in the paper. And from Leonard, he became my sergeant and my supervisor for a long time. And what I liked was because he let me be a police officer. He didn't worry about me being on the street. He had seen me in training. He was a person that had common sense. All right. And I didn't jump to the you know, I listen to people, I weigh things out. But on the other hand, now, my first award that I got from the Youngstown Police Department was because some guys they were robbing the city all over. And actually, Anthony, the funny thing about this, remember I told you I wanted to be a nurse? Well,
Yeah.
I had decided at the end of my year of probation, I was going to quit and I was going to go into back to nursing school. And on the very last day, these guys that were robbing the drugstores all over the city happened to drive by me and my partner. Uh, and my partner started chasing them. I leaned out the window and I shot their back tires out, which we got the car. They threw money, drugs, everything out the window. The one guy got out the car, his leg was bleeding. He tried to say I shot him in the leg, but I didn't. He actually cut his leg from in that drugstore on the glass. And so all I know was this was such a big thing that everybody in the police department, because a woman had did it, instead of me quitting the next day because my year probation, here I'm on the front page of the newspaper, woman.
You're staying. You're staying.
And all I did,
I'll just make sure. I'll just make sure I don't mess around with you.
all I did was look.
I'll stay far, far away from you.
I looked at that article and I went to work, and the captain and everyone was so proud. And I said, well, I can't quit today.
And that was on your first
That
year anniversary.
right. I joined the police department December 4th of 1978. And this happened December 4th of 1979.
And I was born December 7th, 1979.
Oh,
So I was a twinkle in my mom's eye getting ready to pop out while you were becoming front page news. Delphine, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I congratulate you on being honored as the 2020 Hope Honoree for Lifetime Achievement presented by the Hope Foundation of the Mahoning Valley. We hope to honor you in 2022 with the class of 2020 as well as 2022 once we kind of get away from the pandemic.
well, Anthony, thank you very much. And this is what I want you to know. I think everyone that I see on that list are worthy of that award. And I just feel very honored just to be on that list. I think everybody's a winner.
Well, we appreciate what you've done with our youth and our families over the years. I wish you the best and thank you for coming on and we'll talk more later. But so at the end of every show, I like to ask some fun questions. You ready to have a little bit of fun real quick?
Yes.
So, and it's funny because you've told me some good stories about the police force. And so we'll see how these memories and some of these questions come back to those. So any answer can be personal or professional. There's really no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
What's your best accomplishment?
Opening the crisis intervention unit in the Youngstown Police Department, and it's still being there after all these years when many other divisions are not.
Okay. Best memory.
Well,
Other than Sergeant Leonard, other than Sergeant Leonard coming up, you say, "Hey, you want to be a police officer?"
well, I wrote a chapter called Roll Call. My first day on the Youngstown Police Department and the roll call. And I walked in the roll call room and I really didn't want to be noticed. So I took a seat in the back. And the first thing I did was look over, and this one officer is spitting snuff in the can. And I thought, ooh, how gross. And then another officer raised his hand and he said to the captain, you got us working with these women. What are we supposed to do? Okay. And because we're on air, I don't think I could tell you my response. But
no response needed on that, just the memory.
Everyone in roll call bust out laughing. And after that, that officer walked up and said, you're okay with me. Come join for beer and hot dogs.
Oh man, that's funny. What's your best experience?
My best experience is, I think, helping some children that were victims of sexual assaults. That always touched my heart. Seeing something done to innocent children. And Anthony, as good as my career has been, the one time I probably got in trouble on the Youngstown Police Department, other than my badge,
That
was
was-
when there was a 4-year-old boy that was a victim, and very seldom you walk in on it. I mean, I lost it, and I was
uh,
supervisor, and I didn't have the strength to control the officer that was under me. Um, he probably roughed the guy up a little bit, and um,
yeah, I totally understand.
yes.
Who who's your role model?
Oh, my role.
You can name a couple or one. I know sometimes it gets into a couple people that tend to make an impact in our lives.
Well, in Youngstown, my role model back in the day was Edna Pincham, um, Mayor and Garrel's aide. And Edna was the one person, because in the police department, it was majority men. And she was the one person that I could walk over to her office and just sit down and have a chat, get things out of me, and then go back over to the police department and continue to work. So, um,
And those buildings are connected, so it really wasn't far of a walk.
no, it wasn't, but sometimes it just helps when you just want to talk to somebody and think things out. And then I would go back over to the police department and I'd be okay. Just sometimes just talking to someone. But Edna Pincham was my role model back in the day.
Okay. Okay, so this one's a little bit more probably a difficult answer to do because it makes you think a little bit, but we'll go with it. If you could choose one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be and why?
I would love to meet my grandfather. And the reason for that is this. A lot of people, they look at me and what they see is a Black female. And a lot of people don't know my background. And what they don't know is that my grandfather came from Saudi Arabia. My grandmother came from Czechoslovakia.
Interesting.
Yes,
History lesson.
very interesting growing up in Camel. So probably before I started school, I was not aware of black or white because I seen it in my house, and I had a very loving grandmother. And so I seen the side of my grandmother that she was Catholic, and I seen a lot of things about the Catholic faith. And then on my grandfather's side, who was Arab, was a lot of Muslims. And then uh, my grandfather died and my grandmother remarried. And the second time she remarried, she married someone that was Portuguese. Okay. So, um,
You got a United Nations there.
right. There was such diversity in my family. And now, even my brother, my one brother is married to an Canadian Indian, and my other brother's wife is from the Philippines. So I love the diversity in my
I
family.
can I can picture that's a very just the history. You just to sit down and talk about history from those different areas in the world.
Absolutely. But I would, if I could have met anybody, I wish I could have met my grandfather.
Okay. Well, Delphine, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. It was a great talking with you and always a pleasure. And you're more than welcome to come on anytime you want to share anything you need to share.
Well, Anthony, thank you. And I also want to let you know I appreciate it serving on the Children's Services Board with you and you giving me them little cues when I was first learning some
I
of
didn't give you any
the.
cues. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was cute because I was saying when they were taking roll call, I think I was saying something like yes when I should have said present.
Here,
Here, that's right.
here, present. Hey, we had fun at those meetings. It's a great organization, and the employees and the staff do very good.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, Delphine, I appreciate you taking your time. Everyone, thank you for watching. Delphine Casey, the 2020 Hope Honoree for Lifetime Achievement. We hope to honor her in 2022. Everyone, thank you very much. If you want more interviews or podcasts, you can go to anthonyvspano.com. And everyone, stay safe and stay healthy.